Hey everybody, breaking news. I just got a note from Didier Raoult. He met with the French Premier Macron yesterday and presented data from his most recent update, and he sent me the abstract of that paper just an hour or so ago. It was 1,061 patients that were treated early with hydroxychloroquine. That's the malaria drug we've talked about, with azithromycin, the z-pac. And I'm going to go through the data so you all understand it. 4% of the patients had a persistent virus past 10 days. That means 96% of the patients were not infectious after that initial period. He thinks that's important because it reduces the ability of the virus to spread. 4% of these 1,061 patients, he says, had a poor outcome, but he defines a poor outcome as being in the hospital for more than 10 days, right? And that's actually a pretty strict criteria. But he had 10 people go to the ICU, and he had 5 deaths out of the 1,061 patients. Again, there's no control study. There's no group that was designed to compare this to, but he says compared to the patients who weren't on this medication and compared to results in other parts of France, those are superior results. We'll have to look at the final analysis to assess that. 92% of the patients, therefore, had excellent outcomes in his mind because they weren't in the hospital for more than 10 days and they didn't have a persistent virus for more than 10 days. Now, a couple observations that are important. First off, he found it to be very safe with low side effects. That reflects earlier information, but also, as he's argued and others have made the point as well, it's been used, these medications, in hundreds of millions of people, maybe billions of people without major concerns. So it reinforces that with appropriate doctor prescriptions, it should be safely administered. Secondly, he noticed that the amount of the hydroxychloroquine in your blood correlated with outcomes. And that's important because we hadn't thought about the fact that people might absorb it differently, and that's a critical issue. And then finally, he looked at the potential increased risk of some medications, in particular blood pressure medications, which were correlated with worse outcomes. And the one that caught my attention was the angiotensin II receptor blockers. These are commonly used blood pressure medications. He's arguing that these are a problem because the group of patients who had those medications, 13% of them had persistent virus. That's 3 times more than the regular group, and 30% of them had a poor outcome, which is 7 or 8 times more than the average participant in the trial. I also want to point out that's the same receptor that the virus uses to get into our body, so there's a theoretical reason why there's a concern for that. It should prompt more investigation. There's a new NIH trial that's about to start, 500-patient trial. These are the kinds of endpoints that you'll be studying as well to give us more clarity on these insights. Again, more information to help educate doctors and make that doctor-patient discussion a bit more robust. I hope you found this helpful.